Good. Welcome. Good morning. Good evening, everyone. My name is Luna. I'm the program manager for ACO's Design Leadership Program. I'm going to start presenting our video about the program. I think it's quite inspiring. So just bear with me while I'm sharing my screen here.
Design is leadership.
In recent years, we've begun to see that the most successful organizations are the ones that infuse their business with design at the core.
In our 12-week program, you will hear from and interact with some of the world's most highly regarded design and innovation leaders from across the globe. Our exclusive masterclass sessions will give you insights into how design leaders think and act in order to elevate design in their own organizations to deliver exceptional outcomes.
You will participate in more hands-on workshops with design leaders from your region, in which you will deep dive into some of the theory and practical activities behind the masterclass topics.
The Design Leadership Program is for those who want to learn how to manage and grow their team, develop their design vision, act as an advocate and catalyst for design within their organization, and generally navigate the challenging yet rewarding world of design leadership. We know that the realm of design is constantly evolving.
Our biggest goal is to help you develop the skills needed to become a great design leader who can continue to navigate the ever-changing world of business and society over the next decade.
We hope to see you in Season 2 of the Design Leadership Program.
Searching for a better way to write with your team?
Okay, that was our video about design leadership. We are here today with Vanita and Anshu. We're going to be talking about visioning for conversational design. I'm so happy to have you guys here. Thank you so much for your time. Vanita, thank you for making this happen with me. It's such a pleasure to be collaborating with you for almost a year now. Vanita was our alumni for the first season of Design Leadership 1. As I said, thank you for letting us know where you guys are joining. I am here in the US. Vanita and Anshu, I believe you're both in India right now, correct?
I'm in Germany, so I work in Germany.
I can hear you. Oh, wait.
Timers,
Anshu is in
sticky
Germany.
notes, voting,
Yeah.
and of course,
Oh, I didn't know that. Wait a second.
and the
'cause
finishing touch,
there's
you can
some-
integrate the tools you're already using.
There's something on
making
my
you a ma-
background here. There you go.
There was a nice background to your
Music, yeah.
I
yeah.
know. There was something going on here. It's too early in the morning. I don't think I'm fully awake yet. I didn't know you were in Germany. Well, you
Yeah.
see, I think that's one of the beauty of the program itself. We are from all over the world. I believe that's also one of the challenges of for design leaders or leaders in general. But about Echoes, we are an independent and innovation agency driven by design. We have 3 business models. One of them is the School of Design Thinking, which is who is hosting us today. We have design leadership. Vanita also took the course of design futures. We have a couple of other courses as well. You guys are welcome to check it out on our website, or if you want to reach out and ask more in-depth questions, I'll be happy to talk to you. We help business create value and innovation for good, and we help people and organizations master the innovation mindset, skills, and tools. We're global. I'm here in the US, but we have a big team in Brazil, in Australia, and now our team is growing quite big in Europe as well. We have one of our headquarters in Portugal, and we have a bunch of people in Italy as well. And about the design leadership program, it's starting in less than 20 days, I believe. It's the 9th of March. It's a 12-week program where we're going to be guiding you through a journey. So pretty much this journey came from these 4 aspects of the design leadership, which is a lot about you and yourself, because you can only deliver what you have. So you need to understand what are your skill sets in order for you to then be able to lead others. So it's a lot about you and others, giving feedback, deep listening, understanding needs, how to highlight people's characteristics. It's a lot about you and the products and services that you deliver. And because you're delivering something to someone, it's a lot about you and the systems where the new outcome will live in this world. This is our lineup, some of the Global Masterclass speakers for the season 2. We have big names joining us. Again, we started May 9th and we go all the way until August 3rd. We do have 10 days of break during the summertime, just to make sure that we contemplate the North Hemisphere, make sure that vacations are taken and people have time to lose up a little bit after so many years of being trapped home. If you have any questions about the structure of the course, if you want to have deep conversations about design leadership or design in general, I'll be so happy, and I'll be the one probably talking to you. So don't hesitate to reach out to me. And I'm going to leave it to Vanita. The stage is yours. I'm just here to facilitate and listen to what you guys have to say. Thank you so much for being here again. And let's go.
Thank you, Luna, and the ECOS Innovation Lab. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good evening from wherever you're all joining. I'm Vanita. I'm a design strategist and a transformational consultant. And I am also an educator for design thinking and innovation. And I'm here to discuss this topic of visioning for conversational design with Anshumali Barua. And for those of you who'd like to know more about Anshumali, Anshumali is a designer and theorist working towards mapping customer experiences in voice, conversational AI, and associated emerging technologies at Deutsche Telekom, Germany's innovation hub. And in the past, she's led conversational experience design for Bixby, Samsung's intelligent assistant, at their R&D institute in Bangalore, India. And her work has also led to patents in the field of AI. Welcome, Anshumali. We are absolutely excited to have you here. And
Hi.
we'll begin this. Hi. So we'll begin the session now with a brief context. And as you all know, today's topic is visioning for conversational design. And conversational design is a very popular and evolving field today. Now, as artificial intelligence is changing how we live and interact with the world, it's not uncommon for us anymore to interact with chatbots and virtual assistants for a wide range of activities, right from purchase to customer service to service fulfillment and even personal interactions. We are already personalizing the conversations with machines, so much so that Siris and Alexas are no longer aliens to us, right? And with rapid advancements in technology, particularly artificial intelligence evolving at an exponential rate, we expect that the applications of conversational AI in chatbots and other areas will also be in a constant state of change. But at the same time, we also see that there is immense scope for mission intelligence and maturity to be built in the current systems and to refine these conversations between machines and humans. And what we mean by conversations is the interactive communication between machines and humans, and that's clearly multimodal, right? And if we look at it in real life, conversations between humans go beyond language. I mean, it involves subtle cues such as eye contact, gestures, body language, and more, right? Now, all these become constraints when we are dealing with a human and a digital conversational agent. And designing for these type of nuances when a human interacts with a system is one of the core challenges, I would say, of conversational design. And all these challenges also mean and that there is immense scope and there is a need to design these conversations. And that is why conversational design is a sought after discipline today. And briefly, conversational experience design is about defining the interactions between the user and a conversational agent based on how people communicate in real life. It's a relatively, I should say, it's a relatively unexplored field, or yet to explore field that also presents us with great responsibility to consider ethics and other implications. So with such a broad landscape, how do conversational designers go about visioning and scoping the kind of work that they do? What are some, current use cases, interesting use cases today? What is the futuristic outlook? I mean, why is leadership and visioning so important for conversation design? These are some aspects that we will be discussing with Anshu today. And so, Anshu, over to you. I'm going to ask my first question. So designing conversations between humans and AI is what makes conversational AI appealing, right, today to people. And so tell us a bit about this technology and where we are, how this has evolved through the years, and how is most importantly, how has design transitioned through this change, this constant change?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very, very interesting question to start with, because we always wonder, right? Right now, we are in the middle of, Alexa, Siri, there's Google Assistant, and then you keep wondering that, did we ever think of this before, or this is something totally new for us? But if you just, think back a little, maybe 5 years, you would remember things like you would get a notification from your, say, bank saying that, oh, your upcoming payment of such and such amount is due, or that sort of a notification which used to come through a call center or through a bot at that time, is the first sort of assistant or AI coming into this sort of a conversation with humans. It was more like a notification assistant at that time. Then it evolved into something that we would like to call, maybe say, FAQ assistant, where you would just ask very straightforward questions and the system would give you those very straightforward replies. And these could be very simple things like finding out what the capital of a certain place is, or the very first search queries that you would put into Google. Those were your very, initial stages of FAQ assistance. Then we are currently in a state where we have seen contextual assistants coming into shape, where they understand their users, they understand who we are, they understand our location, and they understand what we are trying to find. They use these points of context around us to build the answer that would be most suitable for us. So that's where I would say we are currently. But there are a few of these assistants which have also taken it a step forward, where we are now looking at also personalized assistants, like assistants which is built around how I live, maybe the space around me. My assistant can understand if it is, if my lawn is dry and we should water it, and give me a notification around the same. And then I would say that we would look towards a future where all of these assistants would start working together. And you would not need a separate assistant for your phone and a separate assistant to control the temperature of your house. We already see that happening in some places, but I would say a more cohesive future is what we are looking at. To come to your second part of the question, how do I see design being a part here, is that conversational AI is a great example where technology is finally adopting to humans, instead of being the other way around. So far, there was technology available and we were trying to design things so that it's easy for us to interact with that technology. But right now we see technology doing the other, going the other way around, where it's learning how to talk, it's learning how to understand our, like you said, non-verbal cues. And so with design, already we have so much focus on people that it comes very easily and naturally to us. And I would say that's where designers have a major role to play. And I would say design is one of the flag bearers of this evolution, So basically what happens here is that voice lets you engage with users at a very personal level, right? And to sort of get these equations right, you need a design perspective where you can modify the technology for different localities, geographies, different people needs, and then the same product has the capability to transform for different people and caters to different needs. That's where I would say design is is going to shine in this field.
Yeah, I really liked what you said, that the technology has to learn from humans and not the other way around. And therefore, I think it's very important to build, and it's very, I mean, the role of design is very critical in conversational AI, right? And that also brings me to this question. When we say conversation design and, people who are uninitiated, right, they go, how difficult can designing for conversations be? But that's also because I think we as humans have learned to communicate even before we started walking, right? And so it seems very natural to us. And how difficult can a communication be? But when it comes to building these communications with machine, it's a completely different complexity altogether, right? So then, we also have to ensure context, we have to ensure turn taking and many more. So walk us through what are the design principles and practices that you use to build such conversation? What goes behind building such conversations?
Right. So I would say what you just said actually is two of the principles. You just spoke about them. So
Okay.
I would say one very important principle is that you always design for context. You always try to understand if there are additional information available from the user's end, and you always clarify in the sense that you understand if the user is currently situated in a certain location, what they're asking for, is it something to do with that location, or is it something to do with their, say maybe the number of devices that they have in their homes, or is it something related to what their most recent search query was, or the most recent show that they're watching on Netflix. So all of these points of information forms a network of context, and to understand that context is very important. You might have these privacy and surveillance sort of issues, but then taking all of these into consideration, you should try to gather as much context as you can for designing for voice. It helps build a conversation, because you and me, when we start talking, we already have context. We don't need to set a premise to what we are going to maybe talk once we meet face to face, and then we don't need to keep doing that again and again. But with a system, you have to build that within it. You have to try to gather this information and use it to your benefit and help lead the conversation ahead. So the next principle that we mostly use is the cooperative principle. It was designed by somebody called Paul H. Grice, and it's a very straightforward principle. It's that every participant in a conversation, we would assume that everyone's talking something of importance, of relevance, it's all truthful, and it's going to take the conversation to its desired goal. So when a user asks something to an agent or an assistant, it's an assistant's prerogative to be as truthful and relevant as much possible. So if I ask for if a donor shop is open right now and if it is closed, it would really help if you also tell me that it's currently closed but it opens in an hour. You're being informative then, and the conversation can carry forward. If you just tell me it is closed, what do I do next? You don't give me a hint towards what can happen next. And talking of next is the turn taking. Every conversation has been evolved in a way that we talk in turns. So turn taking helps us, if you just look at it very practically, it takes us through this whole process of driving the conversation towards common goal. It gives us an opportunity to clarify each other. If there are any errors happening in the conversation, this is a time to take care of it. So if I say that book a meeting for me tomorrow, and in my mind tomorrow is maybe Friday, and the system says, okay, booking a meeting for you at 5 p.m. on Wednesday, that's a clarification, right? That's a turn taking where I say that, oh, tomorrow's Wednesday. Oh, no, I want the meeting on Friday. So that's something that is very interesting, and we keep these in mind to sort of refine our conversation and also take more input from the user if they have given an incomplete utterance, like book a table at so and so restaurant, but we don't know how many people to book it for. So that's where we can take a turn and ask, how many people do you want to book this for? And we get that information from them. So using these three major principles, you can start building your conversation. But apart from this, of course, you have to look at a system persona. So now we have always worked with user personas as designers. It's high time we also have a system persona, because the moment you start talking, the user is going to build a persona of the assistant in their mind. So before you leave it for the user to completely build it, you might as well give some cues as to the system's persona, and those can in fact humanize the assistant for your users. And lastly, I would say you should always design for memory. Like with us, if I know you once, you don't need to tell me your name again for the next 5 times we meet. That's the same thing. That's what I mean when I say design for memory. Try to understand and retain the information that the user has already given you, and try to bring it into context in your conversations so that it feels more natural and it has a certain nice human flow to it. I would say that sums up the principles bit of it. And mostly I would say voice design has evolved from, say, voice first, and it also is with us in multimodal behaviors. So that again is part of your context, and designing for both of these different contexts is something that is something that you can explore. So yeah, it's evolved in these two directions currently, I would say.
I think it's very interesting, and it also presents as a broad landscape, right, to bridge a lot of gaps. I mean, from whatever you're saying now, right, from how you build personas, how you get how do you design this whole interaction, keeping in mind so many variables, and so the landscape seems quite broad. And how do you see the role of a designer? I mean, what is the role of a conversation designer, and how does it fit into the entire scheme of things, maybe in a program or in a project? And you could probably give us some practical ways that designers actually work in the larger scheme of things.
Yeah, okay. So I will maybe just start with a rough overview in terms of what a conversational designer's role can be like. First of all, of course, you have to understand and empathize with your users and identify these users. Also, it helps if you really have a problem-solving mindset that, there is a hurdle, and how to go about it. You need to be open to multiple ideas and try to figure out multiple iterations before you can hit the right note, and we also know the high cost of badly designed systems, right? And that's where a designer's role becomes very important in something like voice, because the acceptance of voice is something that we are still working with. Voice is still in, like you said, it's still in a very nascent stage. So that first impression can make it, or not make a product click with your users. So it's really important to sort of give that attention to detail when you're designing. And also you have a huge chance now as a designer to impact the future, so you might as well jump on board and grab it. So I would say when a designer is working in a voice setup, it's a very multidisciplinary setup, right? You have your tech, product, and design team, of course, but adding to that, you have to now navigate the nuances of each language. So that's where linguists come into play. We work with linguists or UX writers who help us refine our, statements that the agent is going to provide the user with, or the answers that the agent is going to give, so that it fits the persona that we want to build for our agent. So you also design the system persona apart from understanding who your user group is. You also work with data science to understand where different data is being understood by the user correctly, by the agent correctly or not. Try to understand if there is more training required in certain areas of the assistant, where the assistant is not maybe able to understand certain intents or the user commands. And that's where you will try to work with data scientists to understand if there are ways to sort of ease that path with design. Also, of course, you have to do a lot of training, but that's one part of it. But if design can also help solve a problem, so I would like to give you an example. So if you think about feedback mechanisms that are built into agents, so it's very difficult to get feedback, right? So if you give a wrong answer, the user might terminate your session, and you might not really understand if it was terminated because you did not understand what the user said, or it's because the user found their answer. So trying to incorporate a feedback loop within the UI that you're going to show the user, that itself is where design can, is one example where design can bring in their expertise. So this is something that we had done in the past. So that's a very personal example that I've given. But yeah, I mean, I would say you should always work hand in hand with data science and tech and product, because if you just say that, oh, we have this technology and now I'm going to design in a silo, that's not going to happen. And your product might not be what you really want it to be. So I would say work as closely as possible. It's a great learning experience also, because this tech is new and every day you hear something new. So it's a great way to keep yourself updated too.
Yeah. I mean, and it's a challenging role, I must say, and quite different. I mean, although the background is UX and the design practices are the same, I'm sure it's very challenging because of the nuances. I mean, you're trying to teach something as dumb as a machine to act as intelligent as humans, I would say, right?
Right.
So now at this juncture, I think it would be interesting for all of us to understand some interesting use cases in the present, and how do you see this evolving into the future? I mean, what are some use cases for the future?
Right. So if I have to just state very simply, the future of voice seems to be a very bright one, right? So there are a lot of technology applications which are also expected to emerge in the coming times. And we have already seen during the time of the pandemic, where you really didn't want to touch anything anywhere.
Yeah.
Voice has been suddenly we have seen a lot of boom in the usage of voice. So just to give a quick example here, Amazon Echo was widely used by healthcare practitioners during COVID-19 with the Alexa platform. And also students and researchers at CMU University, they brought out these I would call it an application where you speak into it, and based on the quality of your voice, they could sort of detect or predict whether you have COVID-19 or not. That in itself was such an interesting leap in this technology and bringing it, in such a forefront, that why not now advance it into other healthcare sort of domains? Try to look at if it can be used to identify other diseases, other disabilities that people might be facing, and instead of them having to go to a practitioner or to go to a test, of course they have to do a test, but this is like a precursor to it, right, before they even need to go to somebody for this. And then there's also a lot of work being done in terms of mental health. We're talking to somebody, trying to do suicide prevention. It's like it's getting a lot of momentum at the moment. There are a lot of startups working on this. Two that come to mind are Biobase and Visa. They are one of them is a Bangalore-based startup, and they're doing really, really amazing work in terms of mental health with an assistant. So you get assigned an assistant, and you can sort of get talking to them. And if your case is really, really severe, of course, they direct you to a professional. But this is somewhere that, where people are now locked down, or, they have not been meeting anyone for the last 2 years. This is a outlet for those people where, they can get into that rhythm of a social life in some manner, in some sort of resemblance. And I would also say one of the emerging fields you are going to see is voice tech in the workplace. So Amazon's already done a little bit of initiation into that, where it's launched Amazon for Business, but we haven't really seen Alexa much into it, or we haven't seen too much examples around it. But of course, you have seen Google's Duplex, where you can even make a reservation with the restaurant's bot talking to you and taking your appointment. Or, that was I think showcased in the 2020 I/O by Google, but that's still a demo. But you're going to see a lot of those. That's where we talk about autonomous assistants talking to each other, and creating this network where most of these I would say low fidelity jobs can be handled by the assistants, and we get a lot of time to sort of dive into what we would like to do with our time. So I would say the future has a lot to offer. I would not be surprised if voice and IoT devices work very closely together in the future, because these two spaces are, I think that they're very interconnected. They're not something that can work separately. So yeah, I think the future is very bright that way.
So which also means, with such rapid progress that's happening and all that you're saying, somewhere I think it's there in all our minds that, that ethics could be, a question, while we also see that a lot of usability and accessibility issues can be addressed. So we see both the positive and, the ethical concerns that could come up with this advancement, like any other technology advancement. So how do you see the role of design leadership here? And how do you see, visioning as important aspects of the work that's going on?
So I would say that's a very interesting question, because it's high time that design leaders start pushing for. Of course, ROI is important, but they also start pushing for ethics in terms of, because right now it's a huge playing field, right? We do have ethics in AI as something that we know and try to practice, but bringing that into our designing and into our whole narrative is very important, I would say. So if you talk about privacy, if you talk about surveillance, if you talk about, say, opacity in terms of the AI systems that we build, how transparent is the data? How much are we learning from the user that that the user has control over? Are we giving them that control? The moment you start establishing these trust factors is where you are, you have an opportunity to stand out, because we have all heard of these controversies, where the Echo device at home would just speak up without nobody speaking to them. But of course, this is a matter of training also. But I would say that understanding these, letting the users understand your system, how much information you are actually gathering from the user, would be a game changer. Also, there is a lot of nowadays, we have seen a lot of examples also, but there's a lot of bias in this decision making systems that needs to be addressed. Also, bringing in accountability, trying to own up a mistake is very human, and we are very forgiving. We are very forgiving by nature, right? If somebody owns up. So bringing in accountability is also important in these systems. I would say I'm touching on very high level points right now, but these are just examples. So if we have to now think about certain examples here, I would say when the Apple Card faced a lot of problems because of their facial recognition system would not understand women of color. So they had to really relook at their whole system, retrain their imagery, and rework. So that's something that, of course, they could not really predict it, but that's the outcome. So now they have to really refine it and make it as neutral as possible, right? We have also seen, if you now talk about accessibility, we have also seen quite a bit of advancement, in the sense that one of the main benefits of voice recognition technology is that it has the ability to maybe understand and also interpret those with visual and speech impairments, right? So one of these names are VoiceIt. So they are doing really, really amazing work where they have trained their systems to understand impaired speech and give them the desired results, and do a lot of these voice related work. They are doing a lot of these voice related work in that field, and they're doing amazing work in that. So I would say that there is a lot of progress happening right now. And if we just look around, there are a lot of these startups and a lot of these even student groups in different universities working on amazing work like this. But still, there's a lot of way to go, because none of these are still standards. We are still establishing industry standards, and every other milestone brings new challenges and new requirements to understand from different users' perspective and different edge cases, and designing for them, and even defining policies around it. So I would say it's still a long way to go, but we have seen a great start here.
No, and that's interesting. And that also brings up the role of design research, right? I mean, to understand the users, to understand the problem statement very well, and then to be able to do this. Otherwise, it also highlights, as you speak, I think, the role of research here before we can actually start solutioning. And I think we are close to time, but just before we take the audience question, I have one last question for you. And very briefly, what do you think are some of the skills and tools that a conversation designer should have? Because I think it's very important. I'm sure many of them might want to enter the space, and and it's clearly multidisciplinary. So what kind of skills will actually help aspirants?
So I would say there are tools available currently that are very powerful. I would definitely call out VoiceFlow here. VoiceFlow is doing amazing work, and they're bringing out new updates almost every quarter. They've recently updated with user personas to be built within the flows, and it's a very important tool to pick up. Of course, you can use Adobe XD, and that's also available for voice design. There are different I would say skill areas where you can pick up different database and documentation around designing for voice. One of the great sources are Alexa itself, the Alexa documentation by Amazon. That's really, really in-depth and detailed. It's no harm in reading through it, even if you're not building for Alexa. You get an idea about what you should be doing and what you're maybe missing. And apart from that, there are different chatbot initiatives that are also interesting to look at. There is Coco Hub, which is doing great work in terms of building chatbots and maybe a digital assistant, if not voice, for your service. If you want to quickly build one and try it out, it's a great software, try it out. I would say also keep your eyes open for anything new that is coming up. You will see a lot of these in on LinkedIn, shared by different groups, like the Voice Lunch group. Voice Lunch is basically a 1 hour weekly lunch where people talk about that. There are different speakers who come and talk about their work, what they're doing, be it in their tech or design or product format. And it's great to know what people are working on, and it's great to keep yourself updated.
Very interesting. I think we have some audience questions as well. Hi, Hoda. It's always a pleasure to see you. Thanks for joining in. And I'm going to take her first question now. She should like to know if awareness is higher today than 5 years ago, but that standards are yet to catch up. And how would you push design leaders to establish standards within the community for ethics in AI, for example?
So one of the, this is a great question. I would not say that the standards are lagging, but the technology is advancing too fast. So the moment you start building for, or even setting standards for something, in maybe a year, the technology has advanced even more, and you have to now relook at those standards that you had set. So in that way, I would say standards do have to catch up, and we are still building those. What would push design leaders? That's something that is also a task that I define lays in the hands of a designer or design, tech, and the product triad to sort of present your case as strongly as possible, because your conviction also gives your leaders the conviction that this needs to be really, really looked at or needs to be pushed for. So we cannot just now push ethics in AI as just something as a backup slide anymore, right? It needs to be upfront in your main deck. It needs to have a voice. You have to bring up that concern, only then it's going to be addressed. So I would say, build your scenarios, build your use cases or user flows with ethics in mind, and call it out. There's no harm in doing that. Call it out, that we as a triad of designers, product, and technology, we are ready to do it. So let us do it. And this is the value add that is going to happen. Show them the business side of it too. Show them how it's going to bring up their ROI. Show them how it's going to affect their product's visibility in the market. Maybe that could also help you push them forward.
And then there's this question from Vijay Kumar on if there's any focus currently on incorporating latest developments in cognitive science, embodied physical with conversational design.
Of course, there is. You will see a lot of work going on in the healthcare space. In what you're asking, I think you're asking in terms of brain interactions, brain human interactions, and brain machine interactions, sorry. So yes, there is a lot of work going on in that area, and there are a few examples that I gave just now. Voice It, they use this system too, and it is you will see a lot of these projects mostly in startups or in the core healthcare domain companies who are now currently working on it. But yeah, to be seeing this more in the mainstream, say consumer companies, would take some time.
All right. I think that brings us to the end of this discussion. If there are no more questions, I think I'd just like to sum up some interesting points that Anshu brought up today. I think I really liked how she spoke about where we were and where we are today, right from notification assistance to FAQ assistance to now what we see as agents and Siris and Alexas and personal assistants, and it's clearly multimodal, which has tremendous potential to be, put to a lot of interesting applications across healthcare, across workplaces, across financial sectors, and more. And I think as the field evolves, there are also some interesting design practices, and designing becomes all the more critical in this whole evolution, mainly because we'll have to build user personas. We'll have to be careful about the type of personas that we build, because these are all aspects and attributes that would play out through the machines itself. So I think it's very important for the conversations to be designed, and to be designed from an early stage onwards. And I really liked how she spoke about the role of I think that is quite challenging, right? The role of a conversational designer, which is clearly multidisciplinary, and how important it is for a conversational designer to be collaborative, given that it cuts across areas of data science, product, tech, and, it's not about working in silos anymore. And so collaborative environments and working in collaborative environments, besides having other skills and tool knowledge, I think is one of the core aspects that a conversational designer must have. And clearly, there is a lot of potential for the future as well. I mean, right from recognizing through voice if someone has has an infection or COVID-19 or whatever that might be, predicting to a lot of possibilities, which could also mean that there are positives to it in terms of addressing the accessibility and usability issues. But there are also ethical concerns, because, especially when it comes to ROI, right? I mean, we'll have to kind of balance, and therefore I think design leadership is very critical here to to be advocates for people rather than just look at it from a human perspective. And therefore design leadership and visioning is very, very critical as we continue to evolve, and as this discipline continues to emerge into the digital landscape. So thank you so much, Anshumali. I mean, that was really insightful, and thanks to Ikos and Luna for working with us through this program, and thank you all for joining. And with this, let me hand it over to Luna for her closing remarks.
Thank you both. I think, well, on my end, I can only say that every time we talk about AI technology in the future, somehow we get nervous because we don't really understand. So I think what you guys brought today kind of make me feel, I don't know, more positive about the future, and understanding that there are people with the right mindset behind everything that's being developed. So I think I should just thank you for doing that in a way, because it does calm me down a little bit. And maybe from other people who would, like me, don't really know a lot about the technology behind it. But about the program itself, again, we started in only 2 or 3 weeks. We still have some seats left. I would love to be talking to you guys. I'm most likely the person who you'll be talking about. I'm the program manager. I also took the course, so I know the program 360. If there's anything you want to know about it, or if you want to know more about who are the global master classes, the workshop leaders, I'll be very happy to talk to you about it. This is a special discount for those joining us today. Thank you so much for your collaboration, because yes, I put this together with Vanita, and I have an amazing team to help me. But if it wasn't for the question, if it weren't for the panelists, this wouldn't happen anyway. So thank you all for being here. And that's a special coupon code for you guys. We have an ebook from the season 1, and the season 2 ebook, it's coming up. So make sure to download the first version. So then you're going to be updated when the second version comes up. This is all for today. Thank you again, Ashu, Anshu, and Vanita for your time. Thank you everyone who's here. Hoda, it's such a pleasure to see you. I hope to see you very soon again. And Vanita, I'll see you next week, correct?
Yes, that's right.
Good.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone. And I think it was absolutely amazing working with all of you. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.